But before I go further, I want to convey that Interactive Ontario recognizes that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across the province. We acknowledge that there are over 40 treaties, 40, and other agreements that cover Ontario. We are thankful to be able to work and live in these territories. We are grateful to the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial and who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario. So this land acknowledgement leads me to also thank the Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. Their support was essential in realizing this career fair and the upcoming panel this morning. We also want to thank our many invaluable community partners in helping us promote this event to their networks and partners and members. And I really want to thank the Interactive Ontario team for their fantastic work. Thank you. So the video game and interactive digital media sector is growing in Ontario and needs you. We need people with all types of expertise for internships, jobs, and contracts. The positions are many, and they cover a broad range of expertise from creative to tech to marketing and administration. So today we'll provide you with opportunities to connect with employers of the video game and interactive digital media industry in Ontario. And we'll kick it off with a great panel of professionals who will be providing insights into their career journeys. So without further ado, I'll introduce our moderator today, Carl Edwin Michel. So Carl Edwin is a tech and video game enthusiast. He's the founder and CEO of Northern Arena Productions, one of Canada's biggest esports organizers. Carl Edwin has also been reporting on the high-tech and gaming industry for about 15 years as a freelance journalist, lecturer, radio and TV personality, and is the organizer of the Canadian Indie Game Awards and the Canadian Game Awards. That's coming soon in April. Thank you, Carl Edwin. This is very important to the industry in Ontario and Canada. So Carl Edwin is a leader of our exciting video game industry in Canada, and we're proud to have him moderate this panel. Without further ado, I'm passing it on to you, Carl Edwin, to kick off this inspiring panel.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Lucy. Thanks for the presentation. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Interactive Ontario Virtual Career Fair opening panel. My name is Carl Edwin Michel, and I'm going to be the moderator, your host at the same time for this hour of conversation. So first of all, I would like to thank our presenting partners, Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. Few housekeeping before we start. So please take 5 minutes of your time at the end of the presentation to fill out the event survey after the session. You will be entered in a draw as an incentive, and 20 people will win a $25 Amazon gift certificate card. It's pretty cool. So this presentation is also recorded. You probably heard it a little bit earlier. So the presentation is recorded. If you have any questions during the presentation, please ask your questions in the Q&A section, and I'll be able to well, not me, I'm not going to answer the questions, but our great panelists will answer those questions at the end. We'll have like a 10 to 15 minutes. Hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions. Now, before we enter our first topic of the day, we'd love to introduce our panelists. They are amazing. You'll be super glad to meet them and to hear them talk. By the way, if you want to hear a lot more about them, there's actual videos that were created, and you'll see those videos in the IO website for this presentation, for this session. So you'll be able to see those videos. But I still want to have them introduce themselves a little bit, maybe just a minute just to talk a little bit about themselves. So we have Venessa, Nyarko today, Shiann, Nias, Indigo, Doyle, Javon, Swaby, and Rob Elsworthy. Guys, how's it going today? Good.
Great. Thanks so much for having us.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming today. So I'll start with you, Venessa, actually, just so maybe a quick intro of yourself, and then we'll go to Shiann, Indigo, Javon, and Rob after that. So Venessa, floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Venessa Nyarko. My pronouns are she, her. I am the senior producer at the Coalition, an Xbox game studio that is known for making Gears of War. I am also the chapter leader of Black Kids Code for Girls Vancouver, which is a nonprofit organization that holds bi-monthly workshops to teach Black youth and Black people in our community how to code. And so within my role as a senior producer, I work with cinematics, narrative, and also in-game sequences. And I'm so excited to be here to share whatever wisdom I can with all of you. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic, Venessa. Thank you for the quick intro, Shiann.
Hello, good morning. My name is Shiann Nias. I am a freelance 2D animator and illustrator. I work under the name Anarchist Galaxy, where I do a lot of commissioned work for illustration and animation, as well as graphic design, as well as exhibitory work for myself, including animated short films, music videos, and prints. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Indigo.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, I'm Indigo Doyle. I'm a 3D artist and game designer. I've worked freelance for the past 3 years or so and recently started my own studio pushing Vertices. And before that, I also hosted and founded the event, the Indie Mixer, which was a speed networking event for local indie game developers to connect and collaborate together. And I'm excited to get going today.
Fantastic, thank you. Javon?
Hey everyone, I'm Javon Swaby, and I'm currently working as a junior game community manager at Gameloft. And the main project I'm working on right now is a Disney Tycoon game called Disney Magic Kingdoms. I've been doing it for about 10 months now, and I've been absolutely loving it. It's been an amazing 10 months, and really happy to be here. So thank you so much.
Fantastic, thank you. And Rob?
Hi there. Sorry, I lost my voice today. My name is Rob Elsworthy. I'm a program director at Toronto Film School, and I run my own company, Resistr Interactive. I'm the game director there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob. All right, so let's dive in. I just want to make sure that we get through all our topics today. So the first topic of the day, discussing current trends and future directions in the digital and gaming industry, and exploring the opportunities and challenges these trend present for Black talent. Actually, Rob, would love to start with you on this topic. And then obviously this is going to be a conversation, right? So all the panelists will be able to chime in and give their opinion on the subject, but we'd love to start with Rob on topic number 1.
Okay, so the industry trends?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I've been playing games for what? many years. One of the things I'm noticing lately is that things are becoming very repetitive, and I've lost the interest that I used to have in games in general. I think we need to hear some new voices, some new stories, and one of the ways is obviously bringing in some Black talent to share what they've learned in their lives and some of their different experiences. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's a really good point. I don't know if someone else wants to chime in, but I like the fact that you're saying actually a lot of repetition, right? Like a lot those games looks the same, and bringing new voices will help actually diversify the content that we're playing. So really great point here.
I just remembered. So I did kind of an analysis a couple of years ago, and took all of the main characters from all the top AAA games and just took screenshots of all of them, and they were all the exact same, like 30-something white male with shaved hair and the same clothing. Like pretty much it was a cookie cutter experience. And if you guys do the same thing and take a look online, you probably see a very similar thing. So obviously there's a need to do more of that, and they need to give some different stories a chance.
Is there someone else that wants to chime in on this subject?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think it's absolutely true. I think it was Femme Gaming who did a study recently who found out that only about 8% of the video game leads were Black females, and that's in the entirety of the game history that they could find. So I think there is a need for different stories, different voices, and as we've seen, the stories that do do try to share these different voices and different stories do end up being quite popular. You know, the gamers who play games in general do want to hear these different stories. They connect with them on a deeper level. And so I'm hopeful that that's a trend that will continue. We're seeing a little bit, we're not seeing a whole lot, but I think the more we have devs of different backgrounds, we have devs in the Black community, they're going to get the opportunity to tell their stories and, you know, bring other people into the fold as well. You know, we're not going to keep seeing the same repetitive stories or games that we're used to seeing that maybe were popular when we were growing up. So I'm hopeful that they'll be able to see, you know, themselves or people that represent themselves on screen too.
Thank you for that. Shiann, can you any things to add on the trends in the industry?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Rob had a really amazing point about like how games are kind of like doing the same thing over and over again. Like I've seen a lot recently with a huge trend with like open world games is kind of like everything's following like the same kind of like quest flow, very linear, same kind of like open world concepts, UI usage and stuff like that. And I agree that we need to bring in some like new talent with new ideas to explore like some new storylines and topics, because I feel like, yeah, like how Venessa was saying, like a lot of new games that try to do different things end up being very successful. Like recently we've had like Elden Ring that caused a lot of controversy because it wasn't following all the very traditional type of open world elements. Like one thing people were complaining about was how it didn't really have like a UI, like it's not telling you go here or go do this quest or whatever, right? But it's trying to do things kind of in a more subtle kind of way. And a lot of game developers actually got upset with how successful it was, even though it didn't follow like the cookie cutter kind of like templates, right? So I definitely agree that bringing in some new talent to try new things is definitely going to be a really good plus for the gaming industry as a whole. So yeah.
That's great. Thanks for that. Maybe Indigo or Shiann, if you want to add to this.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. Obviously, I agree with everything that's already been said. And then I feel like a lot of, at least for me personally, I've been noticing a lot of games in the indie space are kind of more focusing on having diverse people working for their team, and then also highlighting the stories of those diverse teammates. Part of like my game, not to be super self-promoting, but my game is very heavily based on my childhood growing up, which means like the main protagonist is, you know, having puffy hair and like doesn't look like everybody else. And then also games like Venba are also kind of like crushing that a bit with their narrative cooking game, which is actually amazing. And I suggest everyone check that out. But yeah, I really like the way that indie games are kind of like bringing in that passion of like different stories. And I'm really hoping that that trend moves on to AAA as well.
Yes, Shiann, yes.
Yeah, just to jump on the point about independent games, I can't say I identify heavily as being a gamer per se. I remember my interest in the gaming industry early on was largely in the art style and the story and the narrative that you go through as, you know, as the player. So I find that a lot of independent games that tend to like begin trending and then become being what's the word, circulated on like YouTube videos, people doing cosplay, people doing fan art, people, you know, really engaging with it. It's usually ones that are very disruptive. I've noticed, especially in like art style. I think of Cuphead, for example. And I feel, and even if you look at like content creators who make content based on video games, they like cosplayers especially, a lot of the content that they gravitate towards are things that insert their experiences as Black people. So there's clearly a lot going for being disruptive and putting oneself into the industry and not just repeating what's already been considered to work. So I definitely hope that it trends that way. And I think really seeing like what people are already making for themselves will be a big part of that.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. And those are all great points. And obviously love to continue making sure that we go through all our topics today. But topic number 2, exploring the intersection of art and technology in the digital and gaming industry. And, you know, want to discuss the opportunities for Black talent to contribute their unique artistic perspective of the field. So I would love to to start the conversation with Shiann. It's interesting that recently, I don't know if you guys saw it, there's a video about actually black hair in the video game industry. That was quite interesting to me, and it all fit with the whole thing with art and how we can contribute to put something different out there in the industry. So Shiann, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I remember noticing there was a creator who had created like digital brushes meant to replicate black hair. I remember thinking that was the coolest thing ever, and she made it like fully accessible, to free to download for everyone to use, and kind of the joke of like, there's no excuse now. But yeah, in regards to like engaging art style, if I can talk about myself for a second, a large part of my art style is heavily based on the things I've liked about horror, sci-fi, and also graffiti. I think a lot of my work is heavily based on like Basquiat, consciously or unconsciously. And if we talk about genres like, sci-fi and horror, famously, when it comes to Black representation, it's not a great history where it's either bad or not there at all. So I do feel really good in finding opportunities. When I started learning to write code, when I started learning to use things like Touch Designer, when I started learning to animate, my approach to a lot of projects during school was, this is a great technology. How can I use it to draw a monster of some kind? And so that's kind of been my approach. So there's a lot of really great opportunities because art itself is so based in story and injecting one's like personality into something. If you merge that with technology, there's so many opportunities to bring something that maybe wasn't tangible to someone else to now be tangible, to now be interactive, something you can kind of grasp, even though it's mostly, pixels and dots. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. Indigo.
Yes, I wanted to say, I think I saw those brushes as well on Twitter, and I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. I wish I did more 2D art, then I would totally use them. But that was really, really cool. And I kind of wish maybe there is a 3D version of that, but if there is, someone should let me know, because that would be awesome. But yeah, I guess for me, like the intersection of art and technology is kind of like all of my life, I guess. Like everything that I do is obviously digital. What's really cool is like sort of being able to take the digital art and bring it into the physical world of like 3D printing, and being able to say like, here's a sculpt of the character that's physically right here, which is really cool as well. So I think the sort of like current progression is really cool to see.
Yeah, thank you. Who else wants to jump in? Maybe Javon? Oh, Rob. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I don't want to jump the queue there, but what I want to talk about is AI. I've been obsessing about it for quite a while now, and there's just so many new tools available. The games industry is like very fast moving. There is a high bar for entry. You have to kind of know a lot of technical stuff to do many of the jobs. And I'm seeing that that's going to change. I can definitely see that happening right now, where it's becoming more accessible. If you have a good idea, if you have some kind of a plan or a good taste, even a lot of these things are kind of becoming achievable now. There's all kinds of advances with AI art, and people don't want to call it art, but I see it as just tools. Like they're gonna enhance our ability to do things, iterate faster, and get more done. And so again, I think that's going to be very helpful to kind of leveling the playing field for everybody.
That's good. Thanks, Rob. Javon, maybe?
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that Rob brought up AI. I think in terms of, I also love how it was brought up earlier about like black hairstyle and like the brushes and stuff. I actually haven't seen this myself, but I do run into the issue sometimes where I'll be like trying to create a character and I'll be looking through the hairstyles, and it's like sometimes it's either you have braids or you have an afro, and I'm just like, okay, I have neither of those, you know what I mean? So it kind of gets hard to find something that suits me correctly. I think another thing I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of other Black people can see a struggle with, is also finding like your correct skin tone like in a game as well. So usually I'll see sometimes in some games like the Black skin tones will be like all over the place. Like it won't be like a gradual kind of like scale, which I see is like kind of frustrating sometimes. And I think a way that AI would be really helpful in a game is, for example, maybe with like character creation or something like that. if they could like draw from like a huge pool of samples of like different types of like character what is it, like characteristics for like black hair or skin tones and all that kind of stuff, and integrating that into like a game where you can like do character selection and stuff like that and character customization, I think that would be like revolutionary. You know, you can actually have like a character that really, really resembles you, you know? So yeah.
Yeah,
Noses.
that's great.
Noses are
Noses too, yeah. Yeah.
And I always have to choose a lady's hair most of the time to get the length, because they don't have what I want. Occasionally there's dreads, but
there you go. That's great. Vanessa, you want to add to it?
Yeah, I think what's really cool to me about art and the technology space, I think a lot of it now, like we're seeing it with the black hair textures video, we're seeing it with the, you know, being able to draw with the actual like the hairbrush for different black hairstyles, is a lot of it is as well too is an educational aspect, right? I think the more we have these tools and videos accessible to everybody, you know, not just like a specific group of people, but we're sharing it, we're making it accessible, the more it becomes part of the mainstream. And I think that's something that video game suffers from, is having a very niche mainstream of what a lead character looks like or what character design looks like. And if we're giving the tools to all creators to be able to make Black characters, to be able to design Black hair that's more authentic to the Black experience, I think it also opens that door for us to be able to talk about like, yeah, this is not a very specific niche character I'm working on. This is the character I'm working on. And you know, there are tools that are able to do so. I also think as well too is that having things like this be so popular also sort of begs the question of how come this technology didn't exist before? Or why is it now coming into the forefront? I think of that, especially with the hair texture video, is that it really makes us wonder or think back to what hair texture looked like before for people who, you know, were white or Black, or what did it look like? You know, like what was the standard and how were we creating characters before? I think it's great that we've moved this far, but I think there's a real education piece to be learned too, the further we get into the types of technology that we're attributing to art, and especially in gaming as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for those answers. This is really cool. Okay, so I want to jump into the next topic. Opportunities for Black talent to create their own business and startups in the digital and gaming industry. And obviously, this is I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I know it's not always easy. So I would love to start a conversation maybe with Indigo, because you are an entrepreneur. You have your own business in the gaming industry.
For sure. I guess it has definitely been a bit of a struggle, but it's also my first time sort of like doing anything as an entrepreneur. So that's probably part of it. But I think that having even just like more resources as well, and having sort of like select groups that specifically are there to support Black entrepreneurs would be really helpful. I'm sure there are some, but they can never have too many. So that would be great to have that implemented more.
That's great. Shiann.
No. Definitely agree with the point of having more resources for Black entrepreneurs. It definitely took me a long time to get myself going as like an artist who can like make money. So many of the paid opportunities I've done, underline paid, so many of the paid opportunities I've gotten have been from people who know who I am and are like, yo, you know what, she's really good at this. You should hire her to do this. You know, so it's been really, so you rely so much on your community and people who like can word of mouth and people who know you. So there's a lot of aspect to getting yourself out there, be that like on social media. It's only more recently I've been able to like run ads, and maybe you don't, you know, not everyone can put the funding towards like running advertisements. And so a lot of it's also been just like, where are the pop-up shops? Can I get my foot in the door? How much is a table? You know, am I able to, can I guarantee I can sell enough prints to pay for that table, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so it's a lot of hustling. It's a lot of talking to a lot of people, kind of trying to know the right people, which is really hard to do. So I definitely agree with the point of having more resources, especially like networking opportunities, and also just directing, especially like young entrepreneurs, into like what like the best places are to like get themselves out there, sell their work, if that's what their business is.
Oh, that's great. Rob, yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I really like what I'm hearing right now from everybody on the panel. The idea that we should be supporting each other, I think that's important. Mentorship is something that, even at my advanced age, I still would love to hear some things, you know what I mean, that could help me improve as a business. And, also because of where I'm at in my own career, then I can help others that are, just starting out. Sharing access to whatever you have is also great. I run a mocap studio at Toronto Film School, and I try to bring in as many people that I can to help and support them. And I think that's important as well. And then again, sharing your contacts and access to other people, right? So if you know somebody that can help someone on a job, then you should be more than happy to bring them in. And I work with a couple of game studios in Toronto, and I've been trying to do exactly that because we definitely need to support each other.
That's great. Thanks, Rob, for that. Maybe Javon, anything to add maybe on this topic? Oh, maybe not. What about Vanessa? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I heard it mentioned. Oh, sorry. I think I'm lagging right now. Sorry, I'm gonna skip for now. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, Vanessa.
Yeah, I think mentorship is a huge one, especially when I was starting out in the industry. So more opportunities to even get mentors too, because I think that a lot of it, or at least in my experience, has just been by chance. Like I just end up working with someone or meeting someone that ends up being a great mentor. But there's not a lot of opportunities I find to create that mentorship or be in a mentorship circle where you be able to meet people that are maybe have been doing this for a long time, maybe have already started their own business. I think we're also starting to see, we talked about it a little bit at the top of the panel, that indie game devs and the indie game dev space is becoming bigger and bigger and more influential. Like we're seeing a lot of the small but mighty studios or small but mighty like sole developers that are being able to do fantastic things. And so I think even being a part of, even if you're not an indie game dev yourself, or you're just in the gaming industry, I think being able to uplift and promote people who are in that space too, especially if you really like what they're doing, if you see them and you're just like, yeah, that's awesome. I might not know you personally, but I really, really appreciate what you're doing. Just being able to support them in that way. I know there are studios and scholarships out there that also help support new game devs or indie game devs. But I think, like Indigo was saying, it's a very small space. And so I think when different companies or different studios are thinking about how can we support the next generation, we should also be asking ourselves how we support the next generation of devs, not specifically for our studio, but devs in the industry as well too, because that's how we make this space a better place to play.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, so I would love to jump into topic number 4. I want to make sure that we get through all our topics and we'll be able to continue the discussion. Discussing the opportunities available for Black talent in social media and content creation within the digital and gaming industry. So I would love to discuss the importance of community management, for example, customer support. So those are like opportunities for Black talent to contribute in this area. And we'd love to start this conversation with you, Javon, because you are really ingrained in that part of the industry. So hopefully you can, you're good. You're not lagging anymore. Sure. That's good.
Yeah, no, sorry. I don't know, connection a little bit unstable today. But yeah, no, honestly, I think we're living in an age where it's more possible than ever to really get yourself out there in the world, where through like social media and stuff like that now, right? Like I think pretty much anyone can become famous now, whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But I think it's really good to be able to use these tools to get yourself out there, whether you're like an artist or like a developer or whatever, because using like platforms recently that have been coming out, like Instagram and especially TikTok, like you can easily go viral even off of just like one single video, right? Just by like putting yourself out there. So I definitely think it's a huge thing that people need to do if they want to market themselves, whether they're like just as like a creator themselves or they have like a business. Social media is definitely something that people need to be taking advantage of, especially that short form content that's just been on a huge boom recently. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Who wants to jump on this subject of social media and also content creation when it comes to the industry? Maybe Indigo? Oh, Shiann? Okay. There you go.
Sorry. Yeah, so when it comes to content creation, social media has been a large part of why I've been able to promote myself as a freelance business, especially. And it's definitely been tricky to kind of game the algorithm and figure out like what works and what people are actually going to see and what isn't going to work. There's been moments that have surprised me where it's like the stuff with my face in it does really well, but it's like I'm not selling my face. But okay, sure. I'll just hold the print, I guess, or relaying animation over live action stuff footage, which has been fun. It's definitely also been a moment of kind of figuring out, okay, animation does well on this platform. How do I also use that to sell prints, and vice versa? So yeah, it's definitely a lot of like kind of figuring out what works and sometimes the contrast between what works well in the algorithm versus what you would like to produce. And then in my particular case, animation is tedious work. It takes a long time. And so when a platform like TikTok demands a bit more consistency, that becomes a bit more difficult, where consistency might be more so every week if I'm really good, or every couple weeks if I'm not as good, maybe every couple days if I stretch out certain aspects of content. For example, I'll animate something and maybe the next day I'll do like a behind the scenes of that animation. So it's a lot of remembering, oh, I need to film this. I need to film this and take pictures of this so I can use it for content later. But you know, it's definitely been a really good opportunity to get more eyes on my work. And again, it's played a big role in me getting the commissioned opportunities I've got, where people were like, yo, I saw that what you did on YouTube. Can you also do this for me? So it's a lot of, it's a hustle. It's definitely a hustle, but I do think in a lot of ways it can pay off.
Yeah. So a great tool of promotion for you, Shiann.
Mm-hmm. Minus algorithmic suppression that may or may not occur.
Yeah. If I could just add on to that. Yeah, no, I think the thing with the face is, yeah, although you might not be selling your face like in particular, like I think the reason that videos with face do better is because people like to attach like work or anything to like a face or a personality, right? So by you appearing in your videos, they're like, oh yeah, this is the artist that's behind it all. And then you can kind of like also use like your personality to kind of market your work as well, right? Because if you're putting out a good personality, support your work more just because they know you're a good person, right? And then the thing with TikTok too, yeah, it's definitely really hard to keep up on TikTok. Is like, in order to keep the steam rolling and stuff like that on TikTok, you have to be, you know, uploading like a day every day or every other day. But certain platforms are a little bit more forgiving. Am I lagging right now? I think I'm lagging right now.
You're good. You're good.
I'm good. I'm good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, on platforms like YouTube, they're a little bit more forgiving. Like I've noticed there's been creators where like some people will try and go for like the video a day thing even on YouTube, which I think is absolutely insane. It's really hard to keep up with on YouTube, especially because those are videos that take a lot more work. But I think YouTube is an example of a platform where you don't actually have to upload consistently as long as you're putting out good quality content every single video, right? So if you're doing a video every 2 weeks or every month, but it's like an absolutely amazing high quality video, you're still going to maintain your relevancy on YouTube and in the community for sure. So yeah, it's all just about putting out good content.
Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I think of it in a slightly different way. Like I think that's all completely valid if that's what you're trying to do. It sounds exhausting to have to do content every single day, and I don't think I can handle it. I look at it more as a portfolio, and so as an artist, I want to put up stuff that people are going to see casually whenever they see it, and then go through my work and see, you know, what I could do. And I tell students that, you know, to keep the content to be of the top quality, as opposed to just putting out stuff filler every day. And also, sorry, losing my train of thought here. Keep things on target. put out something that's the same kind of thing every day. I've noticed like if I switch up what I'm putting out on a stream, then you'll lose followers as much as you're gaining them. So no pictures of a cat or children. If you know what I mean, if you're trying to be a modeler or something along those lines, just put out models, right? If you're an animator, all anyone wants to see is animation. Nobody has time in their feed to check out all the different kind of things that you want to do. A lot of people who are just starting out, they want to show everything that they're capable of. So then they put a lot of their stuff out there, of all like kind of a scatter shot of things, hoping to find success. And I would prefer to see that they just put out what they're best at. And then if you wanted to show some of the other stuff, make a completely different stream so that you can promote that separately from the main thing that you're doing.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rob. Venessa, maybe a little bit of feedback when it comes to social media and content creation.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been within the social media sphere. I started my career in gaming in digital marketing and social media. So it's been a while, but what I do remember from that time, or at least, and then as just a personal user of social media, whether or not it's long form content or short form content, I think the things that resonate with me are things that tell a story, right? And so you want to be able to tell a story, and similar to what Rob was saying, it needs to be a consistent story. So I think so long, whatever that consistency is, it doesn't need to be daily frequency, but so long as from the thing that you post on Monday to the thing that you post the next Monday, or the thing that you post on Tuesday is telling that consistent story, is building more of the image of yourself that you want to show people, right? And if you're not sharing your own content, but you're trying to get into a studio, or you're trying to get to a specific company, the consistency is even more important there as well. You want to continue to build who you want people to see you as, who you want, and stay on target with that, as Rob was saying, right? Like if you're super passionate about, accessibility in gaming, you're super passionate about sustainability in gaming, that's something you can focus on, right? Like the things that you post on Twitter, things that you post on TikTok, and things that you post on Instagram are obviously have to be authentic and true to yourself, but need to continue to be on message and tell that story of who you are through everything that you post.
Thank you. Time is ticking, so I want to make sure that we get into our last topic, and then I have maybe like just one more questions to you guys before we get to Q&A. So let's do that one quickly, discussing the various business and management roles available in digital and gaming industry, because a lot of people think that you have to be either a designer, a programmer to be in the gaming industry. As we know, there's so many different aspects of gaming, like marketing, sales, project management, producing, operation. Venessa, maybe you can start on that one. What are those opportunities for Black folks to get into the gaming space and different aspect of the space?
Yeah, I love to talk about this because I did not go to school for coding. I ended up coding way later in life just for fun. So that's not what got me into the gaming industry. So yeah, you've named a great few, Carl. So it's production management, project management, there's HR, there's culture and talent management. I talked a little bit about accessibility, which is a big space to be a part of. There's sustainability as well, which is a big space to be a part of too. There's a lot of community management, community engagement. We talked a little bit about social media and digital marketing. That space as well is all within the gaming sphere. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer when we talking about only programming and engineering, because there's so many different roles and opportunities within the gaming space that are important for the creation of a game, and that are important for our industry and game dev, and for things to function as a whole. So yeah, definitely a long list of opportunities within for the Black community.
Thank you. So I just want to, again, because we don't have too much time, I want to jump in and ask you a specific question about your journey in the industry and how you got there. Obviously, don't have to go in depth, but it's important for students that are watching right now. What are the steps that you're taking to be in the gaming space? And maybe we start with Shiann, and then we'll go to Indigo, Javon, and Rob and Venessa. Shiann?
Hi. So I feel like in a lot of ways, I've stumbled upon a lot of the aspects of my career I ended up in. When I first started conceiving a career in art and tech, I thought about game development and/or graphic design. And then in the process of going to university for a new media program, which is like art and tech and in a broader sense, I learned that I was more curious about the art and story aspect of video games than it was any other aspect. So I started to focus more on art and story. And then during like a video art class, I realized I had a deadline that I didn't meet. And I'm like, well, it's too late to film something. Hey, I know how to draw. I've been an illustrator for the entirety of my life. I can figure out animation. So I found like a free program that came with my drawing program and did some like frame by frame film that, you know, because I've learned so much since then, it's something I look back and I'm like, but it's something I'm proud of because it made me if something clicked in my brain where I was like, oh, I can do this animation thing. This is great. And I just love that it brought so many of like my drawing, so much of my illustrative work to life and a new dimension. And as I mentioned earlier, even as I was learning to write in P5JS, even as I was learning Touch Designer, I was trying to find different ways to inject monsters, the monsters I was animating, into those projects. And through there, it was just a process of, you know, showing my profs, showing my peers, this is what I'm doing, this is what I can do. A lot of my animation experience is largely self-taught, so resources online as well as just experimenting and trial and error. And it was throughout me completing my degree that I was starting to get approached by the Canadian Film Center, by African Food Basket, to do commissioned work for animated, usually promotional graphics or video explainers, as well as any projects I was doing on my own. So I guess to sum up, yeah, a lot of it was me realizing I wanted to do something and then figuring out how I was going to do it, and then just showing as many people that I can do this thing and seeing where it would take me.
Thank you, Shiann. Indigo?
Yeah, so I definitely have a similar journey where like I kind of just stuff just happened. I remember playing games my entire childhood, and then when it came time to figure out what I wanted to do for school, I actually went to the Toronto Film School, shout out Rob, and I originally wanted to go and do concept art. And then once I learned the concept art, I was like, I'm horrible at concept art, I'm never doing that again. So then I kind of stumbled into 3D and was like, oh, I really like this. And then fast forward several years of sort of working on my portfolio, working part-time in other industries. I started doing freelance, and then from there sort of did some random stuff, and then eventually moved into working with some local indie studios, which then led to me working for myself and making my own studio, which sounds really like, oh, just a hop, skip, and a jump, but there's a lot of details in there, but that was kind of the thing. It was very much like, let's see what this step takes me. And it wasn't super planned, which I find is kind of a trend lately. Like a lot of people I talk to also have this same experience where they're just sort of like, oh, someone offered me this position. I was like, sure. And now I'm here. So I think like if there's any advice from that, it's like go with the flow. And if you do have a plan, but something else comes up, don't like super feel like you have to stick to that plan, because there are really cool opportunities that can just sort of like appear and you'll be like, oh my gosh, thank you. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Indigo. Javon?
Yeah, so far I feel like you can really relate to Shiann and Indigo and their own journeys and how they were kind of trying to find like what they wanted to do and stuff like that. I just to start off, I feel like the main thing I want to tell people that are looking to get into like the digital or the video game industry, if they want to get into it, is to just kind of like go for it if they're truly passionate about it. Because I myself, I actually went to school for like, I got into school first for like astrophysics, and then I switched to biology, and then eventually I ended up getting into like social media, where I found like my true passion. And I noticed, and I've always had the passion for like video games and stuff like that too. And after graduating, I was kind of like lost. I was like I did like learning about biology, but I noticed that I didn't feel like it was something that I wanted to actually pursue as a career, right? So all the meantime throughout like my university experience, I always had like the passion for social media and video games. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, let me try and do something with that, right? So when I graduated from university, that was actually like at the beginning of like when everything shut down, right? So I wasn't actually able to find a job for like the longest time because of that. So what I ended up doing in my spare time, kind of as like, I guess, like a side hustle while I was during the downtime of the pandemic, as I started getting into like live streaming and content creation. And I started noticing that like over time, with like enough like effort being put into that kind of stuff, I was able to like generate like a pretty healthy sized like community, right? And I kind of utilized my experience with live streaming to kind of find like a job in social media. So I didn't have any like prior like professional experience in like the social media industry or the gaming industry or anything like that. But I kind of just like used my experience with live streaming to get my first job in social media. And then I used that job in social media to finally get my job in my current job right now in the video game industry. And it was just kind of surprising because like I didn't really think that would be like a possibility. I kind of just like threw applications out just trying to get something right. But no, like after I was able to get the position, I asked like, you know, like, why'd you guys pick me? Why me out of everyone else, right? And they actually told me, they were like, you know what, to be honest, we were really impressed with like your background in live streaming and being able to like create like healthy sized communities on Discord and like all these different like servers that I was creating and stuff like that. And they said that was the main reason that I got hired over other applicants and stuff like that. And whenever I tell people this, they're always super surprised because they're like, yo, I had like no idea that like you could use that type of experience to land yourself a job in like the video game industry, right? So I think one of my biggest pieces of advice for people trying to break into that industry is just use anything that you can use, any type of like skill that you have that you think can apply to that position, and make sure to sell yourself on it, because you never know like what you can actually obtain, like, but just by marketing those skills to other employers and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you, Javon. Rob.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this tight. So for me, I was extremely ambitious when I was young. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I tried to do everything, and I learned a lot of skills along the way. Whenever an opportunity would come across, you know, my desk, wherever, I would treat it as if it was the last thing I was ever going to do. So I would spend long hours working on it. I was kind of obsessive about it. But it paid off, because again, you don't know who's going to be seeing what you're working on, so do the best you can on anything, right? I was interested in technology early on, so that was another thing. Like I went to art school, art college. I went to OCAD for that, and I was getting interested in computers even while I was doing illustration and stuff, and that was super helpful for me because it allowed me to transition into a bunch of different things later on. So get your tech skills up if you're interested in doing the art side of things, because it's a very technological industry in that sense, and there's plenty of opportunities for you if you have those skills. Yeah, and shamelessly promote yourself. As you've seen here, everybody who's doing well, it's all because they're talking about what they do. So get that stuff out there. For me, it was before social media when I started, so it was a lot of sketchbooks and just putting up my artwork wherever I could, showing it to anybody that I could that wanted to see it. And that led to many opportunities. People would talk about you. Once they know what you do, then they want to fit you in somewhere, right? So it's in your interest to let everyone know that.
That's awesome. Thanks a lot, Rob. Venessa?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this quick too. So I went to school for writing and digital media. I played games all my life, but of course didn't think that I was like, oh, I was going to make video games when I was older. Also because that wasn't a career that people actually talked about like for a very long time. It wasn't just like, hey, and then you can work in games. So it's cool to be able to say that, you know, I was really interested in writing and now I produce stories for a living. It's a really cool I guess, full circle moment. But I will say the big thing for me, I think what really helped in my career, a part of it is sort of just I kind of fell into it as Shiann and Indigo were saying as well, and Javon too. But a lot of it was the opportunities that I had when I was going to school. So a lot of the internships that were being offered at my university were the first things that sort of propelled me to get my first internship job, that got me my first mentor, that got me like thinking, oh yeah, game development can be a thing that I can excel at and I'm super passionate about and I want to go into. And so I think without those internships being offered by corporations or just regular jobs there, and having them accessible was a huge part of how I got into the industry. And then even after that, I was a part of the Ubisoft graduate program. So not actually an internship, but an opportunity that was being extended to people right out of school, right? Like we always talk about or see, it's like, how can I have the years of experience you're asking for me when I just came out of school? I think it's a really, really big plus to have those opportunities that are being offered to people who need the experience coming out of school, because that's how we create the next generation of people who are going to be telling these great stories and making these great games. So I would just say, if you're interested in getting into the gaming industry, to look for those internships, look for those opportunities. I know a few different studios are starting to offer more and more of those entry into the game dev space type of initiatives or scholarships or just, contract positions. And also, if you're a part of those studios, if you're a part of the industry already, start considering offering those internships and those mentorship opportunities and those contract scholarships and contract positions, because that's how we start to create the space that we want to see within this industry.
This is amazing. Perfect. Thank you, Venessa. We have 3 minutes to go. I know we have a few questions in the Q&A. Maybe just one question that I'm going to throw to you guys. How do you, as professional and entrepreneur, deal with learning in your spare time, especially since you're in the tech industry? You're either expected to keep up with the latest trend, or there's an external pressure to keep up. So whoever wants to answer that, that's probably going to be the only questions I can ask before we close today.
Well, I could speak up for myself. YouTube, I'm on it every evening, constantly looking at tutorials and stuff like that, and downloading every free program that I can find and get my hands on. So if it's related to games, even remotely, I'll download it and give it a shot. And that way, at least I have some understanding, some knowledge of it, and some things you'll find that you can add to your workflow.
Perfect. Anybody else wants to answer that question?
Yeah, I was gonna just say I agree. Like, YouTube is definitely your best friend. I feel like the internet has evolved so much. I remember, like, if I was like in high school and I wanted to try and like learn something, it definitely wouldn't have been as easy as, oh, let me just look that up really quickly online. So that's an awesome resource. For me, I sometimes will set aside a weekend to have like a mini game jam with myself and try and learn a new feature. I personally don't code very often, so I've been trying to push myself to learn how to script so I can make my own stuff. So that's definitely a struggle. And then also sort of like taking time aside to learn new stuff is really important, but also like not a huge, like if you don't have the opportunity to, I wouldn't say like feel like you shouldn't feel bad because you didn't have time to learn Blender or you didn't get to use Substance yet. Because that kind of comes in time. And then a lot of places, they understand that there's a lot of software out there. So they'll be happy to say, hey, learn on the job for a couple of weeks or something like that as well.
Awesome. Another question. Do you find that everyone in the industry, interactive digital media and video game, should have some coding experience, or is it more a good to have, but not always necessary? Who wants to answer that question? Yes, Shiann.
Hey, there's obviously lots of areas in the industry where coding is a big part of what you're doing, but I definitely don't think it's mandatory. I know what I know in regards to code, but if I have to choose what to do for the rest of my life for money, it's definitely animation and illustration. And video games need that. Video games need visual. So there's definitely, just at that one example, there are so many opportunities without coding to get involved. Yeah.
I would say that just understanding the logic of coding is important. You don't have to know how to code this stuff. You don't have to have all that stuff memorized, but just understanding how these things work in an overall general sense, it would be super useful in pretty much all aspects of the art, animation, that kind of side of things.
I'm also a big believer in this. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm also just a huge believer in the fact that I think any skills that you can get anytime you're able to learn them are always going to be helpful, right? They're always going to be super important. But, speaking from my personal experience and the experience of others that I know as well, it's absolutely not mandatory. And to what Shiann was saying as well, too, there's a lot of roles, even within the visual concept space, all the way from concept art to animation, where you don't need to know how to code. And there's nothing that says that you can't learn to code on the job too. Like if you're in a non-coding role but are really interested in coding, I'm a big believer of transferable skills. So the skills that you do have, how can you market yourself to get into the industry? And then if there are things that you want to do to plus up your skills and plus up the things that you want to do, if you find out that you're really interested in programming, that's something you can do as well.
That's great. We have a little bit more time. We're going to go until 12:10. So that's I have two more questions for you guys. Can you share about your workplace culture? Is it more collaborative or independent? Who wants to answer that one? Yeah, go ahead, Shiann.
Yeah, so I'm a sole proprietor, so it does tend to be kind of lonely. I don't have employees. I don't really report to anyone. I report to myself, and I say I'm doing a good job. But there are surprisingly a lot of opportunities to be collaborative, especially in regards to like when I'm doing like work for, say, a gallery or an exhibit, then yeah, that's a bit more independent. But if I'm doing commissioned work, I love doing commissioned work because I'm in constant communication with whoever I am working for. I'm constantly sending them, okay, based on what you gave me, here are sketches. We can go in this direction or in this direction. Which one are you leaning towards? Cool, cool. Here's what it looks like. Semi-animated, what do you think? Et cetera, et cetera. Just constant feedback loop of here's what I can do and here's what you're looking for. There's definitely quite a bit of delight in them saying, I love what you did. This is so good. That's so satisfying. That's all you want to hear when you're doing something for someone else. So, and then it also takes me a lot of places because I'm not working for the same person every day or every month, so I get a lot of opportunities to meet new people, be in different communities. I'll be working with film folks, and I'll be working with tech folks. I'll be working with farmers. So it's independent, but not super lonely in my case.
Thank you. Who wants to answer that question?
I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. Being a part of the coalition and Xbox Game Studio, of course, there's I work with a number of different people on a daily basis, and see them every day, whether that's virtually or when we're in the studio. I think what's really cool about working with others in a collaborative space is that you're all sort of pushing for the same thing. We all have this sense of the games we make can't be made without every one of us, but we're all working together towards the same goal. And I think it's a really interesting experience to say, at the end of a game, we made this together. And I think that's a really cool feeling. It's a sort of a relationship that I didn't start having, or that type of relationship I didn't start having until I was in the industry. And I think it's a really special one. I would say too, is what's cool about the coalition is that they're always trying to push on tech and technological advances. So that's sort of how I try to stay in, of like get in the know of the new things coming down the pipe and all those kinds of things as well. So it's really cool to be able to learn and grow and sort of share those new things with people. At the end of it, say like, look what I made. Yeah, it's a really special feeling.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's jump to another question. If you were to start all over again, what would you do and how would you enter the field? Who wants to answer that one? I'm going to choose.
I'll start.
The one thing that I would say is I think I spent a lot of time, even during the internship, past the internship, dancing around the game dev space because I was afraid to get into the game dev space. I thought like I either didn't have the right skills, I didn't have enough experience, or I was just like, I'm just starting out. And I think if I had to do it all over again, I would just jump in head first. We talked a lot about the transferable skills that can get you there, and I think there was a lot of fear and anxiety on my part of like, what is it going to be like to get in the space? Do I have what it takes to get into the space? Am I enough to get into the space? And, now knowing that, everybody who is interested in game dev can be in that space, it's something that I would have just had a little bit more confidence to jump headfirst into.
Awesome. Who else wants to answer that?
Yeah, I can kind of I can kind of
I
go
was
off.
about to choose you actually, so that's good.
Okay, okay, sweet. So yeah, no, I agree with that totally, Vanessa. Like, same thing how I was talking about before. I always wanted to get into the game industry because it's always been like one of my biggest passions, right? But there was always a lot of self-doubt and kind of like yeah, I guess like self-doubt and like imposter syndrome trying to apply for jobs in the gaming industry because I was like, you know, like I don't have any prior professional experience in the gaming industry or anything like that, right? So I was like, you know, how am I going to break into that? But like how I said before, just using the skills that I had in relation to video games and the video game industry, I was able to use those to break my way in. And I wish I wish I knew earlier that I was able to do that instead of putting it off for so long. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. We don't have much time. I just wanted to take the time to thank you, Shiann, Indigo, Javon, Rob, and Venessa for being part of this amazing panel. We had a great time and we learned a lot from you guys. So thank you for that. I will invite everybody that are connected to connect with the employers participating in this session scheduled this afternoon. So if you have any questions, please ask them to the employers. They're there for that. They're looking for talent. So it is your time to shine. So please do that. And before we go, obviously, if you can take 5 minutes to fill out the event survey after this session, you will be entered in the draw as an incentive, and 20 people will win a $25 gift card from Amazon. So it's pretty cool. Again, I just wanted to thank you for everything. Thanks for your time. My name is Carl Edwin Michel. Have a great day.